Now, let's walk around here, and then we'll talk about some of the ports. Unless I'm mistaken, that's going to be the power plug where you connect the power. Down here, similar to the original MacBook Air, Samsung has gone with these little kind of flip-down ports in order to essentially allow you to have ports, but to sort of have this design that sort of stays nice and thin here. Now, helpfully down the bottom here, it actually tells you what these ports are. So this is where you plug in the external Ethernet, which I already pointed out. This is looks like a mini HDMI down here, and then this is a USB port. Now, it's a super speed USB. So this is actually USB 3. So that's actually a really cool thing to have USB 3 on this particular laptop. Moving around, there's basically nothing on the front at all, and then on the other side here. I guess it's easier to do the flip down. We have another little flip down panel. This is a micro SD card slot. This is a headphone jack and a microphone jack, so it's going to be basically a dual jack. And then there's another USB port here, and this is just a regular USB 2. Now, the micro SD card slot, this is an interesting move by Samsung. For people that, use like an Android phone or maybe an older Windows mobile phone, having a micro SD card slot is pretty cool because, you can take it out of your phone and pop it in. But here's the catch, right? Most people already have ways of wirelessly transmitting their pictures off of their phone, whereas most people that have like a regular digital camera are still using SD cards, and there's really been no move in digital cameras towards micro SD. So I kind of feel like this is a really weird move on Samsung's part. Having an SD card slot here would have been much more useful for, I believe, average users. Now, you of course can take a micro SD card slot, get an SD card adapter, and then put that in your camera, and you can get around it that way. But going that method, you're going to end up, I believe, with not great performance in your camera. Of course, it really depends on what kind of camera you have. So anyway, I would have preferred to see a full-size SD card slot, but there are some sacrifices you need to make when it comes to getting a laptop that's this thin and this light. Now, you'll notice that Samsung has gone to great lengths, like they've actually basically etched the information into the back here. I have a sneaking suspicion that this giant ugly yellow sticker is just for their review units. So I think if you buy this at retail, you won't see that. However, you would probably see this. And I have to admit that's kind of unfortunate. By the way, this product key is only going to work for Samsung Series 9 notebooks, so don't bother pausing the video and writing it down. It's not going to do you any good. But yeah, again, I think it's weird that this wasn't hidden somewhere. It would have been nice if it was, but again, if this back part can't come off, which I mean, I see some screw holes here, but it's not obviously meant to be popped off super easily. I do think that it would have been nice to hide this, but I kind of understand why it's there. So let's just flip this open here. Here we go. Here's this bad boy. Yeah. That is one nice looking notebook. So let me just continue to walk through some of the specifications for it. So this particular version that I was sent, interestingly, it has Windows 7 Professional, and that's kind of weird. I guess maybe Samsung's going after the mobile business professional, and with the $2,400 laptop, that is kind of more of a business professional price tag than it is an average consumer price tag. So I kind of get that. So yeah, 64-bit. Now it uses an Intel Core i5 2537M, which is a 1.4 gigahertz processor. I'm going to have to do some research and punch up on the screen right now what the actual turbo boost is, because there will be a turbo boost. The other thing I'm not 100% sure of is whether or not this is a second gen, like an Intel Sandy Bridge CPU. I had assumed it was, but the spec sheet I'm looking at here doesn't actually call that out as being the case, and typically they would be sure to mention that if that was the case. So I'm going to double check on that. Now, wonderfully, it comes with 8 gigs of RAM, so it comes with two 4 gig chips. So if you're going to be running virtual machines or using it for heavy multitasking, 8 gigs of RAM is fantastic. It's not necessary if you're just basically using, Outlook and web browsing and doing a bit of gaming. 4 gigs is going to be decent, but again, it's nice to have a SKU that has a full 8 gigs. Now, the screen, and I'll just kind of move up here. The screen is 13.3 inches across, and the resolution is 1366 this way by 768 this way. So it's a 16 by 9 screen resolution. I would have loved to have seen this be like a 1440 by 900, I believe that's the resolution on the MacBook Air. Screen res for me is a big factor. That was one of the reasons why I ended up wanting to try out the MacBook Air, because I love that screen resolution. So it's a little bit disappointing that Samsung, you know, in a $2,400 laptop like this particular version is, it's disappointing that they didn't go with a higher resolution screen. On the flip side, or I guess rather for comparison's sake, the Sony Vaio Z, which clocks in at about the same price tag. Now I'm talking about the previous gen, not the brand new one that was just announced in Europe. The Sony has, I think it's a 1600 by 900 display, so it's nice and high res, and they even have this insane like 1080p display. So anyway, I think Samsung kind of cheaped out a little bit with the display that they decided to use, but the good news is, and I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but this is actually, it looks like a matte display. It's not super high gloss. It looks like it's fairly matte, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan of matte displays. Glossy screens, you know, they look kind of cool when you're shopping for a laptop in a store, but when you get back to using something and you're watching movies or doing work on it, you really don't want to have a glossy display. All right, back to the specs. Now, it uses the Intel GMA HD internal graphics, so it has no dedicated graphics processor, like a standalone graphics processor. And now that I look at this, I'm leaning towards this actually more being a first-gen Intel Core i5 processor, because I believe, and someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, if this was a Sandy Bridge processor, it would have a slightly different Intel graphics processor card name. Now it does have SRS 3D sound effects. The speakers, I've been told that the speakers are on either side. So, and it's interesting, there's no you know, speaker grill, so I'm going to assume that it's going to come out the side here. So it is stereo speakers, so that's a great plus compared to something like the Dell Vostro V13, which only has sort of one speaker. The webcam up here, if you can just kind of barely make that out, it's pretty small. It's a 1.3 megapixel webcam, which is nice rather than like a lower resolution webcam. We'll have to see what the quality is like on it. Now, as I mentioned, this has a 256 gig SSD. The spec sheet doesn't say, but I'm going to assume, and it's probably a safe assumption, that the SSD inside this beast is going to be a Samsung SSD. And Samsung's SSDs have been tested as being fairly fast, not like, you know, OCZ Revo, you know, 3 fast, but fairly good performance on that. It does have a Gigabit Ethernet via this dongle, so this is going to be a Gigabit Ethernet dongle. In terms of built-in Wi-Fi, it has 802.11 ABGN. That's an Intel Wi-Fi chipset, and it also has Bluetooth 3.0, which is kind of interesting. And I'm looking at the spec sheet here because I remember seeing something in here about the Bluetooth speed. Yeah, so Bluetooth speed is actually up to 24 megabits per second, which is 8 times faster than Bluetooth 2.1. So if you're looking to you know, transfer some big files, having Bluetooth 3 is definitely going to be important. On the flip side, though, you, I believe, would need to have something that supports Bluetooth 3 on the receiving end as well. So I don't really know how important that is going to be for most people, but, you know, Samsung put it in. It does have headphones and microphones. It has the webcam up here, and what's kind of interesting is that I don't actually see any speaker holes. It's a little bit dusty here. Yeah, so I'm going to assume that this is maybe a combo. Well, you know what? I'm going to have to do some research and figure out where the microphone input is. Ah, here it is. Right down here. It's kind of hard to make out because it's pretty small, but basically we have an LED indicator for screen brightness or maybe that's power. No, it looks like it's screen brightness. A light sensor, perhaps. This is your microphone input here. There is only one microphone. I don't see a second one, so it's not going to be a dual mic array. It's going to be single array. This is your hard drive activity light. This is, I'm going to have to double check what that is. I'm not too sure. It looks like maybe a Wi-Fi icon, and then this is going to be for power. Now,